Have you ever felt like you just didn't belong? Like no matter what you did, you were always slightly out of place? In your family, in your friend group, maybe even in the world? Like everyone else seemed to follow the same unwritten rule book, and somehow you never got a copy. If that resonates with you, there's a good chance you were the black sheep. And for most of your life, that label probably felt like a wound. Maybe it still does. Maybe you grew up being misunderstood, criticized, or quietly pushed to the edges of the people and places that were supposed to feel like home. Maybe you were the one who asked too many questions, felt too deeply, or simply saw the world differently and got punished for it. But here's what nobody tells you about being the black sheep. What looks like rejection from the outside is often something far more profound happening on the inside. The isolation you experienced, the moments of feeling invisible, the years of learning to exist in spaces where you never quite fit, all of that quietly shaped you into someone with a depth of character that most people spend their whole lives trying to develop. Being the black sheep didn't break you, it built you. And today we're going to talk about the 6 hidden traits that almost every black sheep carries. Traits that are rare, powerful, and worth understanding. So if you've ever felt like the odd one out, stay with me, because this one is for you. Number 1, you developed an extraordinarily strong sense of self. When you belong easily, when people accept you without question, you rarely have to think about who you actually are. You absorb the identity of the group around you. You mirror, you adapt, you blend. And that's not a criticism, it's just human nature. We are social creatures and belonging feels safe. But when you're the black sheep, that option isn't available to you. You can't rely on the group to tell you who you are because the group has already made clear that you're different. So instead, you're forced, sometimes painfully, to go inward, to figure out your own values, to decide for yourself what you believe, what matters to you, what kind of person you want to be. Psychology shows that individuals who experience early social exclusion often develop what researchers call a more autonomous sense of identity. In other words, their self-concept is built from the inside out rather than the outside in. And while that process is lonely, the result is a self that is genuinely yours, not borrowed, not performed, not dependent on anyone else's approval to remain intact. Think about someone you admire for their authenticity, someone who seems completely comfortable in their own skin, who doesn't shift and change based on who's in the room. There's a good chance that person knows what it feels like to not belong somewhere, because the people who are most secure in who they are almost always had to find themselves without a roadmap. That's you. You know yourself in a way that most people don't, and that quiet, unshakable self-knowledge is one of the rarest gifts a person can have. Number 2, you became someone who thinks for themselves. Black sheep don't follow rules blindly. They can't. From a very early age, you learn that the expectations placed on you by your family or your social group weren't necessarily right just because everyone else was following them. You questioned things. You pushed back, even when it cost you. And that habit of thinking critically, of not simply accepting what you're told, is one of the most powerful cognitive strengths a person can develop. Research in social psychology tells us that conformity is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. Most people, when placed in a group, will go along with the majority even when they privately believe the majority is wrong. It's not weakness, it's deeply wired into us. But black sheep are often the exception. Because they've already experienced the discomfort of not conforming, that discomfort no longer holds the same power over them. Imagine a workplace where everyone is afraid to challenge a bad idea because the boss seems committed to it. Most people stay quiet, but you're the one who raises your hand, not because you're trying to be difficult, but because you've never been able to turn off that part of your mind that asks, "But is this actually right?" That quality is rare. It's the quality of great thinkers, great leaders, and great change makers. The people who moved the world forward were almost never the ones who fit in. They were the ones who couldn't stop themselves from seeing things differently. You've been doing that your whole life. You just didn't know it was a strength. Number 3, you have a deep capacity for empathy. This might surprise you, but bear with me. When you spend years on the outside, when you know what it feels like to be overlooked, misunderstood, or quietly dismissed, you develop a sensitivity to others' pain that people who have always belonged simply don't have access to. You know what it feels like to sit in a room full of people and feel completely alone. You know what it feels like to say something honest and watch the room go cold. You know what it feels like to be loved conditionally, to sense that the people around you would prefer a slightly different version of you. And because you know those feelings, you notice them in others. You pick up on the person at the party who's smiling but not really there. You gravitate toward the one who seems to be on the edges of things. You don't need someone to explain their pain in perfect words, because you can feel the shape of it. Psychology shows that people who have experienced social marginalization often score higher on measures of empathic accuracy, the ability to correctly identify what another person is feeling. This isn't a coincidence. Pain, when processed rather than buried, becomes wisdom. And the particular pain of not belonging becomes a kind of emotional fluency that most people never develop. The world needs people like you, people who see the ones who are being overlooked, people who sit with others in their discomfort instead of rushing to fix it, people who understand that sometimes the most healing thing you can offer someone is simply the feeling of being truly seen. You offer that. You've been offering it your whole life, often without even realizing it. Number 4, you are more resilient than you know. Let's be honest about something. Being the black sheep is hard. It's not a small thing to grow up feeling like the wrong fit for your own family. It's not a minor experience to spend years trying to figure out why connection feels so complicated. The emotional weight of that experience is real, and it deserves to be acknowledged. But here's what that weight quietly built in you: resilience, the kind that doesn't come from a smooth, easy life, the kind that only comes from being tested repeatedly and learning, whether you meant to or not, that you can survive it. Research on adversity and psychological resilience consistently shows that people who have navigated early hardship, particularly social or family-based rejection, often develop what psychologists call post-traumatic growth. Not just the ability to bounce back, but the ability to actually grow through difficulty, to come out of hard experiences with a deeper understanding of themselves and a stronger foundation beneath them. Think about everything you've already been through: the family dinners where you felt invisible, the moments you were told, directly or indirectly, that who you were wasn't quite right, the times you had to walk through rooms where you knew you didn't belong, and you did it anyway. You walked through all of it, and you're still here. You're still asking questions, still looking for understanding, still choosing to grow. That's not something everyone does. A lot of people collapse under that weight, or they numb it, or they spend their lives trying to outrun it. You're doing something different, and that takes a kind of strength that most people will never be asked to find. Number 5, you have an unusually high tolerance for being misunderstood. This one is quietly one of the most powerful things about you. Most people spend enormous energy managing how they're perceived. They soften their opinions. They perform a version of themselves that they think will be received well. They avoid saying anything that might make them seem strange or difficult or too much. The need to be understood, or at least to appear understandable, is a powerful driver of human behavior. But you've spent so much of your life being misunderstood that you've had to develop a different relationship with it. You've had to learn, sometimes through years of painful trial and error, that your worth is not determined by whether the people around you can see it, that your truth doesn't become less true because someone else is uncomfortable with it, that you can exist fully and without apology, even in spaces that don't quite know what to do with you. Psychology tells us that the ability to tolerate ambiguity and social discomfort is strongly linked to creativity innovation, and emotional maturity. People who can sit with not being understood, who don't immediately collapse or compromise when they encounter resistance, are often the ones who end up doing genuinely original things in the world. You've been building that tolerance your whole life. Every time you stayed true to yourself when it would have been easier to shrink. Every time you kept going, even when no one in the room seemed to get it. You were developing a kind of psychological steadiness that most people only wish they had. That steadiness is yours. Nobody can take it from you. Number 6, you are capable of finding belonging in a way that is genuine. Here's something beautiful that often happens to black sheep later in life. When they finally find their people, and they do, the connection they experience is unlike anything they've had before. Because they've never been able to rely on automatic, convenient belonging, they recognize real belonging immediately. They don't take it for granted. They don't phone it in. When they find someone who sees them, really sees them, they show up with everything they have. Research on attachment and social bonding suggests that people who have experienced early rejection often form extraordinarily deep and loyal bonds in their adult relationships. Not despite their difficult history, but partly because of it. They know what it costs to be truly known by someone. So when it happens, they treasure it. You are not someone who does shallow connection. You've never been interested in performing friendship or keeping relationships at a comfortable, surface-level distance. You want the real thing. You always have. And because you refuse to settle for less, because being the black sheep meant you couldn't fake belonging even when you wanted to, you are someone who is capable of giving and receiving a depth of connection that most people quietly long for, but rarely find. The belonging that comes to you now, the friendships and relationships you build as an adult who knows themselves, is not accidental. It is the direct result of every year you spent refusing to disappear, even when disappearing would have been so much easier. So let's bring all of this together. If you were the black sheep, if you grew up feeling like the odd one out, like you were too much or not enough, or simply impossible to categorize, I want you to hear this clearly. Your experience was not a mistake. It was not evidence that something is wrong with you. It was the beginning of a story about someone who had to find themselves without a map, and did. You know who you are. You think for yourself. You feel deeply and understand others in ways that are genuinely rare. You are resilient in a way that was forged through real difficulty, not just talked about. You can stand in your truth even when no one around you is standing with you. And when you find your people, you love them with everything you have. None of those things are small. All of those things matter. And all of them came from the very experience that was supposed to be your weakness. You were never broken. You were always becoming. If this resonated with you today, I'd love for you to take a moment and think about one of these traits that feels most true for you. Sometimes just naming what we've quietly been carrying is the beginning of seeing it differently. And if you want more videos like this, honest, grounded conversations about the hidden psychology behind who you are and how you became that way, make sure you subscribe. There's so much more here for you. I'll see you in the next one.